In October of 2020, Google did something that seemed completely out of character. They launched a virtual private network, which came bundled with its cloud storage plans. And, on paper, it looked like a major threat to the whole VPN industry. Google had the cache, had the servers, and it had millions of people already paying for Google Drive. Yet, in April 2024, Google announced that it would pull the plug on its VPN, and in June the same year, it was buried in the Google graveyard. Google stated, "We're refocusing our efforts to support more in-demand features with Google One. To keep our subscription service fresh, we're discontinuing the VPN feature." In short, Google's reasoning was that people simply weren't using it. But that's just a cover story. Today, I'm going to break down why a VPN was totally at odds with Google's business model, how a completely fractured internal corporate structure doomed the software before it even had a chance to succeed, and why the explosion of AI forced Google to pull the plug to make way for its next massive gamble. I'm Mo, you're watching the Privacy Lab, and this is why Google VPN was a masterclass in corporate chaos. So, to understand why Google VPN died, you have to look at the business model first. A VPN's two primary jobs are to scramble your data using encryption to hide what you're doing from your internet provider, government, or any hackers on dodgy networks, and two, change your IP address so it's harder to build a profile around your online activity. The thing is, Google's entire empire is built on doing exactly that. Google is an advertising company. Their revenue model relies on tracking your searches, indexing your Gmail, mapping your locations, and ultimately building an incredibly specific profile around you to sell targeted ads. To try and combat this, Google published white papers, they open sourced the software, they even hired independent third-party firms to audit their VPN servers. For example, in their official technical white paper, Google explicitly laid out how hard they worked to separate your data. They wrote, "By employing a cryptographic blind signing step between user authentication and connecting to the VPN, we give users a stronger guarantee that their network activity can't be tied back to their identity." Auditors at cybersecurity firm the NCC Group actually agreed, writing in their public report that they found the system to have a robust implementation and a strong technical security posture. But even with that stamp of approval, the average consumer just couldn't get past the irony. Asking an advertising giant to secure your web traffic felt like telling a hungry Labrador to guard your freshly cooked dinner. No matter how well you think it's trained, you still don't believe it won't eat it when your back is turned. Basically, the audience looking for privacy didn't trust Google, and the audience that did trust Google didn't care about privacy. Well, maybe more people trusted Google than we think. I mean, tons of people sign up for genuinely dangerous free VPNs every single day. But people that did use Google VPN found out that it was just rubbish. In terms of features, it just couldn't compete with the rest of the market because Google built a tool that only did half the job. Most people want their VPN to be able to change their virtual location, whether that's to access regional sites like BBC iPlayer, watch more shows on Netflix, or to avoid content restrictions in countries like Russia and China. It's a pretty core feature of any good VPN. And side note, I've linked to my own reviews of the best VPNs in the description. Google intentionally blocked location switching. Google VPN did not let you choose a country. Instead, when it was first launched, it only allocated you an IP address in what it called your broad location. In reality, that often meant being virtually located several states away, and that ended up messing with things like weather reports and maps, and it proved very annoying for many people who didn't really understand how a VPN works. In 2023, Google addressed this by allowing you to choose a local IP address, which would be nearer your real location, but there was still no true location choice. This decision was an absolute deal breaker for millions of potential customers. What's more, for power users, that app was a joke. It lacked things like protocol switching, dedicated IPs, port forwarding, obfuscation. Plus, if you didn't have a Pixel phone, Google VPN didn't even have a kill switch to block internet traffic if it crashed. Honestly, it was just half-baked. Anyone who was actively looking to buy a VPN realized pretty quickly there were so many better options out there. You might have noticed that there are more than a few similarities between Google's VPN and another well-known privacy tool from a big tech company, that is Apple Private Relay. Really, they are or were exactly the same thing, a limited VPN bundled with cloud storage. But there are a few key reasons why Google VPN failed spectacularly and why Private Relay is still going strong. And I'm sorry, but buckle up, Google made all of this quite confusing. So I haven't mentioned it yet, but there were in fact 3 different versions of Google VPN. There was Google One VPN, RIP, alongside Google Fi Wireless VPN and VPN by Google on the Pixel phones. The latter 2 still exist, both now called VPN by Google, but in reality they're 2 different bits of software. Notably though, the now dead Google One VPN was the only one available for anyone to buy. The others require Google hardware to use them. Coverage at the time shows the disconnect. Starting June 20, 2024, VPN by Google will be discontinued. Even after Google One VPN is removed from the Google One app, the VPN function will be available on the Google Pixel 7 series by updating the system software. That's confusing, right? And it doesn't stop there. If we consider each product separately, they all appear to have different purposes and different goals, and none of them seem properly integrated. Let's quickly have a look at these. Google One VPN. So this is the one that died, the one I covered most at Tom's Guide, and probably the most used version at the time. So it was used as an incentive to convince users to buy more cloud storage, and this was the only version of the VPN available without the purchase of a Google hardware product. Then we've got Google Fi Wireless VPN. So this one's purpose was to convince customers to switch their phone lines over to Google's cellular network, and it was available with a Google Fi subscription. And then we have the Pixel VPN. So the Pixel's VPN goal was to increase physical phone sales. Essentially, Google wanted to offer perks to compete with the iPhone. This version was only available with the purchase of a Pixel 7 or newer phone. Although there's no definitive proof here, it appears that each team responsible for these 3 products was totally separate from the other. So the 3 VPNs may even have run on completely different infrastructures. So I found a clue that points that way. So Google claims it shut down Google One VPN due to low usage, but this was arguably the most used version of all the 3 VPNs. If all 3 shared the same servers, why would you choose to kill the most popular one for being underused while Fi and Pixel carried on unaffected? It suggests, at the very least, that Google One VPN was built and run with little coordination with Google's other VPN ventures. But then, even if we ignore all of my conjecture, the fact remains that in early 2024, you could own a Pixel phone, you could run it on Google Fi, and you could pay for a Google One cloud storage account, meaning you'd have 3 different Google branded VPNs competing for control over the exact same traffic. There's a lot more out there on this topic, but suffice to say, Google was not quite as organized through this whole process as you might expect one of the richest companies in the world to be. Running a global VPN infrastructure is expensive. You need to maintain thousands of high bandwidth servers in dozens of countries, update security patches, and route unimaginable amounts of data without impacting speeds. For a company like NordVPN, that server cost is totally justified because it's their entire business, it's all they do. For Google though, it was a massive expense that wasn't generating any revenue. No one was actually subscribing to Google One for the VPN, they were subscribing because they ran out of space on their drive. No one was using the VPN, and Google could see that. And by early 2024, Google's priorities shifted completely. The AI gold rush was on. Google CEO Sundar Pichai took to social media to celebrate a massive milestone, but his wording made the future strategy crystal clear. He posted, "We just crossed 100 million Google One subscribers. Looking forward to building on that momentum with our new AI premium plan, offering AI features like Gemini Advanced. Clearly, the writing was on the wall. The future of Google's consumer subscription business wasn't going to be based around legacy tools like VPNs. It was going to be driven entirely by artificial intelligence. And there was no reason to maintain an unpopular product that didn't line the coffers. Ultimately, the collapse of Google VPN proves that privacy cannot just be treated as a checkbox in a tech giant's software bundle. A trustworthy VPN needs more than great engineering. It demands an overall philosophy that isn't actively compromised by a business model driven by advertising and data collection. Google didn't fail because they lacked the technology. They failed because they lacked the trust. And when the AI gold rush hit, the clock ran out. Google could no longer justify maintaining an expensive, underused infrastructure that actively blocked the very thing they needed to feed their future: your data. By killing the VPN, it cleared the path for Gemini. It was cold, it was calculated, and it was a pivot that showed us exactly where big tech's priorities lie. But for us, this is actually a massive win. Consumers sent a clear message that they refused to compromise on trust just for the convenience of some cheap bundle. You voted with your wallets, and Google had to listen. If you're looking for a quality VPN that doesn't rely on ads, check out my list of the best VPNs I've tested and reviewed in the description. So here at the Privacy Lab, we're putting out tons of content on digital privacy right now. So drop a like, subscribe if you want, and thanks so much for watching. See ya.